All right. We're ready to call the August 26, 2026 Des Moines Citizens Advisory Board meeting to order. And if we can do a roll call. Sarah, can you do a roll call?
You want me? I'll go down the line.
Go around. Okay.
Tara Vaughn, staff liaison. Oh, here.
Jeff Friend, finance director.
Eileen Evans, at large.
Lisa Franz, Redondo.
Victoria Andrews, at large.
Corrine Anderson Ketchmark, at large, but I'm the chair of the Human Services Committee that Victoria and Lisa are on.
Dan Wallstrom with Woodmont.
Jim Lamparello, at large.
Randy Richards, at large.
Jeff Cromp, at large, chairman of the Arts Committee.
Eddie Duggar, Central, and I'm also on the Arts Committee.
Sure. Allison Chapin, North Central.
We have one more. Rick Laycock is here. And I got a note from Bettina. Oh, wait. You want to? You're here. I'm here.
Gene Oxiger, deputy mayor.
And Harry Steinmetz, council member in here. And I got a note from Bettina Carey that she was running a little bit late. The Rotary meeting apparently ran long.
Should have had a note from Diane Hoyer, who's not here tonight. She's at grandma camp.
I have a note, but it's not about that. Do we have something from Diane Hoyer? I don't really
Okay. Mary Ellen let me know that she wouldn't be here today due to a vacation.
Okay. So Mary Ellen is on vacation. Yeah. Diane Hoyer is at Brownie Camp.
Grandma camp.
What is it?
Grandma camp.
Grandma camp.
Grandma.
Grandmother camp.
Yeah.
To grandma.
She is the camp counselor, or granny.
Okay. Based upon those two for Mary Ellen and Diane, do I have a motion?
We heard from somebody was having an anniversary.
I was going to say Bill Linscott.
Yes.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill is having an anniversary, and I would forgive him. So for those three who did plan in advance, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. What's the motion? To excuse? Okay. I was. Sorry. That's all right. So it's been moved and seconded, and we have two more members joining us. Go ahead and. Well, it's been moved and seconded to excuse Bill Linscott, Diane Hoyer, and Mary Ellen Laird. All opposed? Therefore, the ayes have it. And since no one's opposed. So they are all excused, and we have two more members joining us. Would you announce yourself?
Oh, sure. Bettina Carey, Marina District and Arts Committee.
Charlene Bacalzo, Downtown District and Arts Committee.
Thank you all very much. So, and let the record show those absent or excused. And then the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. And is there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from June.
Jeff Cromp moves to approve.
Second.
Victoria Andrews will second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, move to a vote. Is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved. All right. And then we are going to change the order of the agenda just a little bit because we're waiting for Catherine, who is on a Zoom call. And so we can address good for the good of the order as our second item. Victoria.
Thank you. I want to commend the Arts Committee because, as you know, I live in Wesley, and I put forth an invitation to any of my first-floor neighbors who might want to go and see how many of the sculptures that they could find. And I had 3 takers, so we bundled ourselves into my little Honda Civic, and in an hour and a half, we found 25 of the 30 sculptures, some of which I had walked by many times and never paid any attention to. They had a wonderful time. Some of them, 2 of the 3, had walkers, but we were able to get up close and personal with all of them. And I'm just so grateful for this. It's a wonderful service that y'all did. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Gene?
I'd like to commend the Arts Commission for fantastic music in the park, concerts in the park session. From the aerial views of last night's concert, it looks like it was packed house, to say the least. So, congratulations.
Yeah, I heard very good things at a distance. But anything else? Anyone? Okay. Then we have stalled as long as we could. And our next item is a budget discussion. We have a presentation by the Finance Director, Jeff Friend.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Friend, the Finance Director. Excited to be with you tonight. You might see me and say, that guy's energy level's a little low for someone who says he's excited. I am a little fatigued, so if it seems I'm lacking enthusiasm, it's not because I'm not excited to be here. It's more I'm a little tired. And then to give you some background on your Finance Director, I became a licensed CPA in 2007. That used to not be almost 20 years ago. I worked for about 4 years for the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. I worked for about 10 years for King County Housing Authority, which is not the one that's been in the news lately. Be very clear about that. That's the King County Regional Homeless Authority, which is like, thanks for, homelessness. So they chose a name very similar, which, grates on me a little bit. Spent about 2.5 years working for the city of Tukwila, and then came here as Deputy Finance Director in January of 2021 and became Finance Director in January of 2023. So that's kind of my background professionally. This is the 3rd budget cycle I've been through with the City of Des Moines, and budget cycles always have their challenges. So we're going to talk a little bit about the budget process, where we're at now. If you were at the Budget Town Hall, there's going to be some slides you recognize, because I stole liberally from their presentation, because it was a good presentation and made the same points. So if things changed every time we talked about the budget, that'd probably be a bad thing. So we want to at least have some consistency here. So we will get started. So this is the budget discussion. So first section is the 2027-2028 biennial budget, where we are. So we budget, of course, 2 years at a time. And where we are is uncertainty. So any finance thing you go to, the last 2-3 years, is just, this is the key buzzword. I think our investment broker actually said in their office, it's like a swear jar for every time somebody says uncertainty. So navigating uncertainty. So this is all information that was from a presentation by King County's chief economist that I attended about a week ago now. So just in the environment that we're operating in right now is that the U.S. economy is slowing. So the real GDP, like last year, 2025, was 2.2%. So that's how much growth the economy had last year. In the second quarter of this year, it was 1.3%, so slowing down. Inflation, we have a potential average, for an average of about 3.6% of inflation this year. 30-year mortgage rates are still above 6%. And as we all know, fuel prices are high, and changes in tariffs, which there was news about that even after I made this slide. So we have a lot of things, there's a lot of moving pieces here. Not many of them are very positive, and so that creates a lot of uncertainty of how we all operate in the economy. So the conclusion, though, from all of that is King County will have minimal growth with higher fuel prices. So there is growth. It is going to be small. So really, the projections are not decreases, but just kind of revenue just kind of staying flat. Very minimal growth in the economy. So how the city budget works. And so this might bring back some fond memories if you're at the budget town hall, but we got buckets. So there are 37 different funds on the general ledger for the city. So where we have money and transactions, there's 37 different places. And this was a good visual showing like some buckets are bigger than other buckets. So you see some thimbles down there. So those are like some funds that there's one in particular that we never use, but we budget like $5,000 in it. It's a forestry fund. And the reason we don't use it is because there's incentive for developers to take care of their trees and everything without us having to do it. But we budget it. Nothing happens there. But then one of the larger buckets would be like the general fund, where all the daily activities and operations occur. You might have a bucket for the marina. So there's different funds that represent different activities, and some are larger than others. And we have a graphic here that kind of breaks it down nicely. So this is the fund structure. So like it says at the top, not all money can be used for all purposes. State law and restrictions guide how each fund can be used. That was some feedback we did. I actually personally got from someone emailing me after the budget town hall was some questioned when we discussed the buckets and discussed that some things were restricted, they didn't understand why certain things would be restricted. So in the general fund, which is the first fund on the left, that's funded like with sales tax, utility taxes. There are no external restrictions on how to use that money. And then special revenue funds, if you think of like the hotel motel tax fund, well, there's a purpose if you receive that tax, you have to spend it in a certain way to promote tourism. So we're allowed to have that tax by the state, but they say you can only use it for this purpose. So that's when we say state law and restrictions guide how each fund can be used. That means there's probably some external agency or government or party that's saying you can only do this with the money. So as you see now, we got the City of Des Moines. All funds are part of the city's overall budget. So each fund has its own budget. So general fund is the city's main operating fund. It's the most flexible and can be used for a wide range of services. So examples include police and public safety, parks and recreation operations, community development, finance and administration, legal, clerk, and other basic city services. So your day-to-day operations of providing services to the community, that all can be found in the general fund. So it's funded primarily by property taxes, sales taxes, utility taxes, and other general revenues. So we receive that money and nobody tells us how to spend it outside of the council.
Just a quick question. Are most of the salaries for city workers paid out of the general fund, or are they divided up into?
Some positions can be funded with a grant. So I believe it is our crisis response analyst for the last year and a half has been funded purely by a grant. But by and large, most employees are funded in the general fund with unrestricted dollars. So like most of the police department, which we'll take a look at later, that's all general. Yeah.
But one of the biggest funds aren't marina employees funded out of the Marina Enterprise Fund.
That's correct, yeah.
Right.
Special revenue funds. So those are funds that are used for specific purposes, which just start to sound really familiar, as required by law, grant requirements, or city policy. So examples include the Streets and Transportation Fund, Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. That's a new one that just got created recently, the hotel motel tax fund that we just talked about, and the affordable housing sales tax. So King County, like the sales tax example, that can only be used to support affordable housing. So that's restricted. We can't pay a police officer with those funds. So again, it says funded by, you can see the little lock there, which is probably appropriate. Dedicated revenues, fees, and other restricted sources. Then we move into the middle, capital project funds. So these funds are used to account for the acquisition or construction of major capital facilities and infrastructure. So these examples include municipal capital improvements, transportation capital improvements, but basically construction projects. So one question we get a lot, especially during budget years, are if we say, you know, the general fund is struggling, and then people in the community would say, well, but you're building, you know, whatever project. Say you did the pier, or what, you know, you did the Redondo Pier. How can you, you know, that was probably a lot of money, but your general fund is struggling. Well, they're different buckets. So, and usually the capital project funds almost always are funded like from grants from the state, or, you know, debt, you know, we issue debt or whatever. But the funding source for those things are not sales tax, is not property tax. It's funded elsewhere. Next one is internal service funds. These provide goods or services to the other city departments on a cost reimbursement basis. Examples are the equipment replacement fund. So that's where our fleet of vehicles lives. And when that fund basically helps us, we set money aside, and then we have to replace a car, we have the money already set aside in that fund, and then we purchase the car on this fund. So the general fund does pay for that, but it's not hit with the whole price of a car all of a sudden without any, you know, planning. So this is really the general fund and maybe the marina and swim. Basically, it's like a fund that helps them plan to replace their vehicles. So that activity occurs in this fund over here. Same thing with computer replacement. We have a self-insurance fund and a facilities maintenance fund. So that's funded by charges to city departments based on the cost of services. So basically the general fund, the marina, swim, and maybe a couple others will put money into an internal service fund because they're paying for the services. Enterprise funds, this is surface water management and the marina. This is used for services that are primarily supported by user fees and charges. So basically this is a fund that operates like an independent business. So examples include the two funds that I just mentioned, and they are funded again by charges for services. So user fees, someone's paying a fee for a service, and that are intended to cover the cost of operations. So, you know, if a city owns a golf course, that's probably an enterprise fund. So it's some kind of business activity that's occurring in these funds. And then key takeaway is a healthy balance in one fund does not mean that money is available to solve a need in another fund. And that's actually really, something that we really work to help the community understand, especially during a budget year. So, yes?
Yeah.
Which one of the funds would be?
Jim had a question first.
Oh, sorry. And maybe this is coming up later. Can you give like a rough proportion of how much is dedicated to specific purposes versus the general fund? Is it like, 90% of our budget has to be spent on certain things and we only get 10%, or,
So the general fund, and I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, I would say for that fund, we would budget about, it's probably around 28 million now in expenditures, just across the board, and citywide, the budget for everything combined tends to be around 63, 64. So I'd say general fund might be about 40%, maybe a little higher. The thing that kind of complicates it is those construction projects. So if you're looking at the capital project funds, they might have some huge expenditures, but that's because they're doing a project, and they probably already have the funding for it if they're doing it. So that kind of skews it a little bit, but I would say as far as the amount of money in those funds, the Surface Water Management Fund has about $11 million in cash, which is a lot more than the general fund does, because by the time we provide all the services and programs and pay for police and all that, that fund has cash of about, you know, almost 3 million. So that kind of shows that, you know, this pot of money stays here with surface water management. We can't take, enterprise funds cannot support the general government. We can't take that money for ourselves, because then people are going to be paying really high rates, because the general government would raid that, right? And to support themselves, and then everybody's paying really, really high utility rates. The marina, they had some other money. They probably have about 4, maybe 5 million in cash. So if that gives a proportion, those are really high-profile funds. And then, like, there's 37 of them. So, but those, I'd say, would be the 3 most high-profile. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Okay.
Which one of the funds would be the most underfunded?
I would
Besides
say
all
the
5
general
of them.
fund, yeah. I would say, what I was saying just about an hour ago is, and I'm sure people have heard this before about property taxes being capped at 1%. And like for what, 30 years, that was okay because inflation was like at 1, maybe 1.5. But the last several years, at least this decade, we actually have real inflation now. And we still have this 30-year-old 1% cap. And that it just hurts. I mean, it hurts your revenue growth. I'm sure people aren't complaining that, you know, well, no, they do complain about the property tax, but that's, from our perspective, when we look at revenue, that's always going to be the key thing. In fact, I went to a national conference, and there was a guy on stage. He works for Oak Harbor, and they, you know, this is a national thing. They asked some question. He said, well, I'm from Washington State, so it's property taxes. And I was like, yay, go. So it's always going to be like the first thing you're going to hear about when you talk about like what's underfunded. We're going to say that 1% cap on property tax. Doesn't mean we want an unlimited cap on property tax, but that makes budgeting very difficult.
It makes the general fund is the victim of that.
Yes. Yeah, because that all goes in the general fund.
Thank you. I do want to say the buckets were really a very good visual, both that night and here again. My question is this, and I think this would kind of help others to understand. Like our arts committee budget, is that coming out of the general fund or special revenue fund?
Yeah, that's the general fund, yeah.
Okay. And have you seen an increase in the hotel motel tax fund?
No. In fact, we've seen a decrease.
Really? Okay. And then, lastly, but I think it would be, I understand it would be difficult to balance affordable housing because of inflation in reference to the 1% cap on real estate.
Yeah, that one is a component of the sales tax. So that one's actually pretty steady. We budget about $35,000. We get about that, and then we support SKIP, which is the South King Housing
Partners. It's like a
Partners. Yeah, and so we give that money to them. Like different cities belong to that.
And I will end this with saying, you know, by being on the CAB, I have learned all this from sitting through many of your budget presentations,
thank you.
and you do it very well. But I have made it my purpose when I do talk to others or when that question arises to explain to them, well, we can't spend that money on just anything. And I tried to describe those buckets. Well, now I could use the buckets, but in the past it was just explaining we can't pay for this out of that. So thanks, Jeff.
Yes. Also, one of the things that people I'm seeing confusion about still is that neither the South King Fire nor the Des Moines Pool Metropolitan Park District have anything to do with the city. So people are thinking that, oh, well, because they serve the area that we can transfer that money. You can't. They're separate entities.
Victoria?
Thank you. Does the city benefit at all from giving land that it owns to, for example, the food bank? Is there any tax benefit in doing that?
No.
All right. Okay. Wait, we got one more. Eileen?
So help me understand, as far as property taxes go, churches and let's say Wesley don't pay property taxes, if I understand correctly, because they're reinvesting their money where they're not making money. So they're just kind of flatlined. Is that correct?
This is actually a timely question. So the idea would be that nonprofits are exempt from property tax. And why I say it's timely is because we came up short last year on property tax. It was highly unusual because property tax is pretty steady because everybody pays their property tax for the most part. Nobody wants a foreclosure. So they're highly motivated to pay their property tax. And we saw a gap. And then when we talked to the county, I have a contact over there in the assessor's office, and I'm like, well, what's, because we don't have the accounts. We don't collect property tax. We get our portion from the county that we're entitled to. That's really about as far as our detail goes. But I had to ask for that detail, like who hasn't paid? Because we came up short, and by their numbers, we had a high amount of owed to us that was levied. And then it turned out, after they sent me a few spreadsheets, that it was Wesley. And it was because the Department of Revenue determined that they weren't really, for the most part, the new property was not exempt. In their entire, they had a very large property bill, which they had never seen before. So they're fighting that with the Department of Revenue. I should say that, probably use a better word, but they're working with the Department of Revenue on that. So that kind of, for us, it's like, that was $133,000 we have not yet received. And if, they are exempt, if that's what they determined, then we won't receive it. But we're budgeting property tax for the next year. And it's like, well, do we count on that or not? And it's safe to say, well, we'll assume they won't pay it. And just maybe, hopefully they do, who knows. But so that's kind of the idea, is that a nonprofit should pay property tax.
So if, let's say they don't have to pay on that.
Yeah.
And for them to, like, not run in the red or the black or anything, just to be nonprofit, could they also be helping the city out in other ways, like donations to some of our programs and things like that, to write off and balance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they sponsor for the city?
I believe they were listed as a sponsor of the Waterland Parade, I believe.
That's a private effort, yeah.
That's not a city.
Well, I'm thinking more of overall how much money they would pay in property taxes if they were able to. I mean, what do they do for the city, and should we be asking them, hey, here's some options of things we could use help with. Would you be interested? That's all my thought was.
Yeah, I was like, this is an answer question.
I love that question, Eileen. If only that's how it works. The city actually has, for all King County cities, we actually have one of the highest percentages of land that's property tax exempt. So about 30% of our total acreage is property tax exempt between Wesley, Judson, schools, city-owned property, county-owned property, the warehouses that the port owns, and the natural areas. So 1 out of every 3 acres we're not getting any taxes off of. So it's a pretty significant challenge for us. So yes, I guess I would dream if some of those nonprofit entities would want to help us out, but they have their own bottom lines and financial struggles. To me, I think the more important thing is when I look at projects coming in, I hope desperately it will not be a tax-exempt entity, but I can't control that. So just recently I was talking to Shar about some property she's familiar with that a church bought. Well, that is coming off the tax rolls. And I don't want to talk about the Masonic home, but right now the Masonic home is tax-exempt. And when we've met with that developer, and I do not know what they're putting there, but I did say, please tell me this is not tax exempt. Like, do not come in with a school. And they have assured me it will not be tax exempt. So, that would be great. That'd be bringing acreage onto the tax rolls. But I mean, it's a huge detriment to us.
I did not realize
It's tremendous.
No.
Thank you, good question.
Yeah.
We're only just like, what, 1, 2?
Okay, this one, so where the general fund money comes from. We've kind of touched on this a little bit. General fund revenue by source, to no one's great surprise probably, taxes logs in at 70%. Other items are licenses and permits, charges for goods and services, intergovernmental revenue, that's basically grant that we would get, and fines and penalties. So fines and penalties like red light running cameras show up there. And then taxes received, I figured if we showed 70% as taxes, it might be a good idea to say what taxes they are and show you a breakdown of the taxes. So property tax you see there is at 31%. So property tax is the largest portion of the largest revenue category that we have. It's our number one revenue source, which is why the 1% cap is relevant to the city of Des Moines. Coming up right behind property tax, we have utility tax at 26% and sales tax at 25%. B&O tax comes in at 9%, and just other taxes at 9%. Though B&O tax is performing strongly this year, so that might gain 1% or 2%. This graphic was shown at the town hall, and it's a good graphic, so I stole it. Among a few other slides. The city receives 7 cents for every dollar of property tax paid. So you have the school district getting 35 cents, Washington State Schools gets 18 cents, King County 11 cents, Fire District 9 cents, and fees and charges actually 10 cents. And then you have the city of Des Moines, which is off the screen there, but it's about 7.5 cents. So really, these top categories, the large ones, you combine them, that's about 75% of the pie. And then we come in at 7.5%. And then you can see the Des Moines Pool at 3 cents, Library at 2 cents, EMS, which is a levy that is voted, which is why it says voted there, 2 cents, Sound Transit and the port. So really, property taxes, the thing that really drives them up for people is when people vote in a new levy. So if there's a new parks levy or an additional other levy, that really has an impact. Otherwise, if that never happened, your property tax bill would probably grow 1% a year. If King County assesses your home value at $714,000, then your 2026 property tax bill is $8,972.60. Of that bill, $709.80 goes to the city of Des Moines. So it's another way of showing you that dollar bill. But that's, it's a very small portion of that property tax bill.
Charlene?
Who gets the other 83%?
And that's when we would go back here, is the school district, the state schools, King County, the fire district, and fees and charges. So those fees and charges is just the administrative fee of paying your property bill and anything related to that. So you've got those categories are actually a higher portion of your bill than the city is. And then the other smaller categories are listed on the bottom of the slide there.
So tagging on that, so I understand. So it's the same 700, or of that 716,000, that's the 100% breakdown. So the state gets the 18 cents on the dollar, and King County, and the rest is for our city and specifically?
Right. So this is just, say this is one property tax dollar. Mm-hmm. So really the difference between this slide and the next slide that showed that home price and the $700, the difference is just math. So the $709 would represent that blue bar where the city of Des Moines is. And then these larger portions would have a larger percentage of that $8,900 property tax bill. So 75% of that $8,900 is all those categories to the left. So those ate at the trough, and when they were done, we got the 7 cents per dollar. If that helps.
Allison?
I just think it's unfair that fees and charges gets more than what the city does.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, and that's all just like the administrative, like charging credit cards and all of that stuff, right?
I think so. Yeah.
The assessor's office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it shows the Washington State schools, are those all schools, or are those like Washington State University, UW?
Yeah, I would think, Washington State schools altogether.
So, I mean,
As far as I
our
know.
schools here are part of that? No.
It's the higher education.
Okay.
Dan?
Question, who determines the amounts, the 3518, is that the legislature or somebody
That's a good question.
breaks that down?
Yeah, I would say it mostly rests with the state legislature. So I don't know if there's. I talked to my sister lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was, because I'm a nerd, was talking to her about this, and she's like, "That's really interesting. I wonder how we do property taxes in Georgia." And so she came back to me and said, "Well, they got rid of state property tax, and basically your education's paid for by the counties." And so I think what it shows the difference between the two states is in Georgia, there's not very much central control. It's very localized, right? Because the county is paying for the education, and the state's not even collecting property tax. Here, it seems like there's a lot of central control. Like the state gets a sales tax, property tax, they get the money. We want to do, say, a capital project, we have to go ask them, like, for the money, then we have to spend a certain way. And even though I hate to use Texas as a good example, they seem to have a good balance where they get a good portion of the tax pie, and then you can do what you want, and you have it, and then the state gets theirs. And it just seems, a bit more balanced to me. So I just thought that was an interesting comparison of 3 areas in the country that do taxes different.
Just one more, where we get the 7 cents of the dollar. Is that the same for every city in the state, or does the legislature say Mercer Island gets 10 cents, Briar gets 4 cents, or how does that work?
It's probably close to the same, but it depends on what that community's decided to do with property tax. So property tax, so this is, like the example on this slide, I'll just go to this slide here. So this is one house. The property tax bill, because it pays different tax districts, so I should probably go back to one. So you have different taxing districts. So really what also has an impact on your property tax bill is where your house is and what taxing districts it's in. So if maybe you're in Seattle, or maybe you're in a city where they voted for a levy lift to raise their property tax. So that can change it a bit. SeaTac, their property tax rate is like $2.10 per thousand. Ours is around 85 cents, but it's because they have the airport, which is tax exempt, and so they have to make up for it somewhere. So they pay this really high property tax. So there's just a lot of different variables, but I would imagine for most small cities, they see a school district. Washington State Schools probably is their number 1 and 2. So in that sense, it would be similar, but it always depends on where the house is or where the property is.
It is. Go ahead.
Okay, we will move on. Sales tax. So for every $100 in sales taxable purchases in Des Moines, the city only receives 95 cents. So, yeah. We get a very small portion of sales tax. Yeah. Sales tax the rate in Des Moines is 10.4%. Yeah, and recently raised for the public safety sales tax, which is a restricted revenue source, which, you know, is another topic, but sales tax, we get a tiny sliver of the penny. So, I will back up.
Like internet taxes, when you buy stuff online, is it from the source, or is it from the, where the warehouse is, or how's it work? Source?
You should shop online. It's where it's
Yeah, it's where it's delivered.
It's where it's delivered. Okay.
Yeah.
Buy lots.
Because I know there was an issue with that with cities, anyways.
Don't go to the mall.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's better to shop online than it is to go to the mall,
In Des Moines, it is, yes.
for Des Moines. If you live in Tukwila, you're probably,
Opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it's
or it could be the same.
Yeah, yeah.
but again, it's important, it's where it's delivered. So like, if you work in Tukwila, have it delivered to you in Des Moines, don't have it delivered
Yeah.
in Tukwila.
It used to be the opposite, and if it was still like that, we'd be a lot more excited about those warehouses shipping stuff out of
Yeah.
Des Moines than we get to be now, so.
Yeah, good point.
Real quick question. So a lot of us are still, a lot of us have 98198 as zip codes, and that's also Seattle. How do they differentiate who that goes to?
When I worked in Tukwila, they had the similar concern, because Tukwila and Seattle get mixed up the same, but the state actually has like GIS codes that know where your property is. So even though you have that kind of issue with the zip code, it doesn't really affect anything.
We get our, they get our money.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, where the general fund money goes. We have Eddie Ochart in the picture there, looking very photogenic. So the general fund money goes to pay for police and public safety, parks and community services, community development, public works, court and legal, and general government support. So general fund expenditures, these are the departments in the general fund and the portion that they take up. Oh, look, police is 44%. And that is typical, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
For that slide, it might be helpful if we were to put it in prior, or,
Which slide?
the slide before.
Go back to
That we put it in as, by percentage.
Oh,
I mean,
The next one shows, right?
yeah.
no, I know, but public safety, yes, but Parks and Community Services is in the number two,
Yeah, it's on here. Community enrichment services.
at 6%.
He's
But-
saying it's not sequential.
It's not
By
sequential,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
Because somebody might read it as, we have a ton of money going to Parks and
Right. Well, anyway, police is 44%. This is very typical of cities, that their public safety is a large portion because they do put themselves in harm's way, and there's also a lot of equipment that goes along with, say, a police, cost. I mean, they're always a large portion of the pie. Public works, 11%. Everything else is combined. There are smaller pieces within the other half. Community enrichment services, that's basically parks and recreation, is 6%. Community development at 9%. Finance and the city manager both at 5%, and you have some smaller departments. Human resources is 1%. IT is 4%. But this is a pretty typical view of a smaller city that has its own police force. And it might even be, if they contract, probably still looks the same as well.
I have just clarification. City manager is not just the city manager.
No, that should say city manager's office and all the activity that office does, which is extensive.
Yeah,
But
I think
I-
Yes.
there's like 7 or 8 staff in there.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, sorry?
So where does the fire department come in?
So we contract for those services, so we just really just pay a bill. We don't have our own fire department.
I know that.
No, that's
Yeah.
like, go back to the tax.
Oh, sorry.
They're totally separate. No, go back to the dollar.
Oh, okay.
So they're totally separate. They're their own entity.
Fire district, 9 cents?
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're funded.
They get more than us.
Yes. Thank you.
This is just the general fund expenditures by function, so you can see personnel, the 65.7% of expenditures. Services is 21.5%. And then you have supplies at 2.7%. And as you remember from when we talked about the different types of funds, that we have internal service funds where we set money aside for like car replacement, vehicle replacement, computer replacement, insurance. And that's what that internal services section is at 10.1%. So this is really how government finances, when they break it down by category of expenditure, this is typical of, you have services, you have supplies, and you have people. What we heard at the Community Budget Town Hall. So this is pictures taken at the Town Hall. I think I see some people up there that are in the room right now. It was a good night. There were buckets and pictures of buckets and staff people explaining what their departments did, which is always good to communicate to the community. So this is some of our takeaways here is who was there? We had 37 attendees from across the city, with most attendees indicating they live in the Marina District or Central Des Moines. Public safety comes first. What's the one thing you don't want us to cut funding for? The most frequent response was public safety, police, animal control, mental health co-responders. Parks and trails, second only to public safety. Residents consistently express support for preserving passive natural areas, investing in active park programs, and hosting more community events in local parks. Support for new youth and teen programming was expressed. I thought you were moving to say something. Invest in economic development. As we build this budget, what should we keep in mind? Attendees want the city to grow its tax base through business, not homeowners. They talked about incentives and penalties to get vacant lots and empty buildings developed. Managing costs. Keep in mind, asked what they'd trim to fund something else. Groups pointed to overhead, consultants, and reducing redundancies. They also asked the city to take care of what it already owns before building something new. Budget priorities. The vast majority of attendees indicated they strongly agree with priorities of public safety staffing, permitting improvements, long-term vision for the marina, and increased fund balance reserves.
Question? How were those leading priorities generated?
But anyways, that's okay. So at the workshop, because you were there, we asked people at those tables to fill out those questionnaires. There were questions like, what is the one thing we must keep no matter what? Or if you wanted to cut an area, or if you wanted to add something, where would you cut? There were those type of questions. There were also the boards around the room. So we took the feedback from that, and overwhelmingly, what people identified as, don't cut this no matter what, was public safety. So that's where we sort of got the answer to that first one. And then second to that, we got the most comments and written things related to like parks and rec / open space / gathering spaces for people to come together. So I'm kind of mishmashing that all into one category. So that's where we kind of got that.
My question is about the posters. Those four questions were, I would call sort of leading questions. How were those topics selected?
You mean the priorities?
Yes, the 4 budget priorities.
Yeah,
because they were different from, we didn't say, yes, you must fund the marina, but that's...
So those came from, on August 6th, the City Council did a study session about the budget. And so we walked the City Council through a presentation and sort of gave them a menu of options that were kind of based off of the strategic plan they've just adopted. And we worked with them to hone down the list to identify the truly top priorities for this budget cycle. And those were increase in public safety staffing, like dealing with some permitting issues, which will have a staff impact, dealing with like what are we doing with the marina and what's its role in our local economy, and then finally increasing fund balance. So those questions on those sheets, Victoria, were really like, how much does this line up with what your thoughts are?
Bettina?
I really appreciated the meeting, although I was a little bit late to arrive. But one of the things that I noticed, and it's kind of a consistent thing that happens, is that we don't have good representation for the entire 33,000 residents of the community. And we have on this slide 37 attendees, and then we have what they said, which is like a thimbleful of what is really happening in our city and what other people who are not at the table. I don't know what we have to do to get to a place where we actually get representation, whether we move the meetings to locations but that continues to be a concern that I have, that we're very myopic in our own views and we aren't doing enough to get other people's views that are not at the table.
I absolutely agree. So some things that we have done. One, that meeting was very intentionally at the Activity Center on 216th and not at Beach Park. We get a lot of complaints sometimes that too many things are down there. You'll start noticing almost all of our advertising is also in Spanish. And so although there are a multitude of languages in this community, Spanish is the #1 sort of second language. When school is in session, we are utilizing the schools to help get the word out, but they have limitations on how much they'll advertise for other entities. And then some other things we've been trying to do is, at the December town hall, we offered childcare and didn't really get any takers on that. But we tried to offer that as a reduction of a barrier. We did do that big online survey with the strategic plan. I think the reason why we didn't do the online survey for this was because I do think the budget takes a little bit of more nuance. Like, we actually do kind of need to have a little bit more of a dialogue about some of the facts. But no, we definitely struggle with this, Bettina. I think a lot of communities do. I think we've made some good strides, but you're right, it's really hard. And I'd also add that, especially for some of our more like vulnerable communities, there's a lot of apprehension on working with government right now at any level. So when we have made overtures to certain communities to say, hey, can we set up a little pop-up thing in your apartment complex? I think because of what's going on at the federal level, they've declined us coming in. So that, I think, plays into a little bit of it too.
It's like, even on this, the cab, Park Ridge has been empty, the seat for that, so to speak. Pack Ridge, I'm sorry, has been empty for a long time, because our first representative she moved on, for lack of a better, and we just haven't found anybody willing to, any takers from that area.
Also, UL, sort of, I think part of the intent of CAB is not for this to just be a one-way conversation. The intent actually is for you all to take this information and then go back to your communities that you represent and then bring us back feedback. So, and I don't think that's always quite like happening in reality, just because I think it's kind of that can be a hard obligation, but that is part of the intent, I think, of the design of the CAB.
Dan, I don't know if you know, because you're Woodmont. Yes. The area behind Woodmont Elementary is very heavily Hispanic. And way back when my wife and I had kids at Woodmont Elementary, we started a Hispanic Spanish language PTA that met an hour before the PTA, and the number of people in the PTA doubled. When my wife happens to speak Spanish well enough, and then when my kids moved on to middle school, nobody to take it over, and it fell away. And there's an area, that's a pocket where somebody with Spanish language skills could help reach out. And I don't know if that's in your bailiwick, but we do have some other people around that might be willing.
Yeah, no habla español, so.
Victoria?
Is there an assignment that could possibly be challenged to us if we had a copy of this to bring to our communities.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'd do my own pop-up. I'm sure Eddie would sit there and share it with me, and we could, I mean,
So
that's
we'd be
possibly
that's great.
500, but not usually.
That's great. So we'd be happy to send out this PowerPoint, and then as Jeff keeps going, he actually has some discussion questions for you all. So I think we'd be happy to sort of have you kind of ask people those, and I'd also be happy to send you the form that those of you that attended the town hall filled out, which has some very general questions that I think you don't have to know a ton about the budget to answer, and those were done intentionally. So we would love that, and I think your next meeting is what, late September?
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, we'll be pretty close to done with the budget, but I think we still want to get that feedback to make sure we're on the right track.
Darlene?
I just want to say that that's why I think this group is really advantageous to the community, in that we do share what we learn here with others. And having the heart that I always see from you, I know I share as well in considering other folks and other ethnicities, and trying to keep them informed and or recognize their need and provide that resource somehow. So that's going to grow over time too, I think, in its own development.
Gene?
Yeah, one of the things we discussed before is, you'll remember the effort that you guys all put in with regard to the meeting, the town hall meeting that we had. Yeah, the strategic plan, getting the word out and everything. Well, one of the things too, and so, because of different languages and all of that, one of the things that we can handle the communications much better is through the city manager's report. And we have, what, about 9,000?
Yeah, probably around there.
Yeah, if this group wanted to take that on the same way you did before, is to do everything you can to get as many people to sign up to that, because we can translate it right there for people. But it's a source, it's a single source for the information.
Victoria?
Is the list of questions that we filled out at the budget town hall available in Spanish? We have a number of employees that live in Des Moines. We could put it in the employee lounge and say, and ask in Spanish, do you live in Des Moines?
Yeah, no, we have that, because we actually printed out, we couldn't afford a translator to be at the town hall, because they're very expensive. But we did actually, that PowerPoint that was shown, we actually had that translated into Spanish, and that has the questions, so I can send you that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, that, the city manager report, I just got signed up for that this last year, because I came to the nonprofit summit.
Oh, good, yeah.
And that was great where I got, but I don't think a lot of folks in Des Moines really know about it, or have access to it, or even know it's available. So I think it's a, communication,
Deputy Mayor Oxaker's right. I mean, if you each got 10 people to sign up for that, that's like over 100, that's like almost 200 people. That's amazing.
The other thing I was gonna bring up too is a lot of us are involved in our local, organizations, like the Woodmont Homeowners Association, or Country Club is called. I got access to the board. I was on that board for a while. And so a lot of us have our own little, areas that we're involved with. And so I think that's maybe, an opportunity to go back to those communities and, branch out from there as well. So, yeah.
Don't we have QR codes with the?
Yeah, so I'm going to package up an email to you all with a lot of these materials, including like a flyer, if you want to use that has the QR code to sign up for the CM report, or if you just want to use a link, because they're just putting in an email, I'll put that there too. So we'll package this all up and get it to you this week.
If we've got 9,000 that are signed up for the city manager's report, that's almost a third of the city. That's huge. That's pretty,
Well, a couple of them are my parents, and they don't care. They're always like, oh, we read your report.
Okay, what was happening here? Okay, where we are in the budget process. So this is the budget calendar, and as you see, the arrow says you are here, which is tonight, August 26th, a budget discussion with Citizens Advisory Board. What has preceded tonight, back in May, we reviewed financial and budget policies in June. We discussed budget assumptions. We took a look at economic data, trends and comparisons. And then in July, we updated, it's called our indirect cost allocation plan. It's really how, like, if the marina uses, which they do, our accounting department, or maybe they have a police officer come by, that kind of stuff, they have to pay the general fund. So that's kind of like figuring out all that stuff, which is what the general fund bills to other funds. And then July 28th to July 30th was department meetings with city manager. And then that's when the department managers or the department heads and anybody else in their department that has responsibility for a budget, they come with their budget proposal for the next biennium. And we take that information, we have discussions, they might get some advice from the city manager on their numbers. But that's kind of like when really things really start to kick off is when we start to get numbers in. What isn't on here is the finance director scrambling to pull all the numbers together from everybody across all those funds. Then August 18th, as we said, we had the city budget town hall. August 1st, we had the preliminary discussion of the 2020, should not say 2025 to 2030, it should say 2027 to 2032. That's my fault. It's the CIP, but basically the CIP plan, which is the capital improvements plan. So that's the plan that has all the capital work. So, you know, the Redondo Pier was in there, the Marina Steps was in there. You know, you have just a variety of things that Public Works is taking on. It's usually Public Works and the Marina that have these projects. And then actually tomorrow night, as you see, as we go into the future on August 27th, that plan will be presented to council. And on September 12th, up there in blue and bold, is the council budget workshop from 9 to 12, and I believe that is at the beach park?
No, it's here.
Oh, it's here. That's right, it's here. I don't really know what's going on as far as locations go sometimes. September 26th also is the city manager will draft a budget message, and finance prepares the preliminary budget. So September really, it just doesn't stop once we hit those meetings with the department heads. It just keeps going. Complete the primary budget book to council. So our goal this year, which has not been done, and we had a good slide for council that demonstrates this, but in the past, what we've given council on October 1st, which is a deadline set by the state, the city clerk needs to receive the preliminary budget on October 1st. They got a list of like general ledger accounts with the associated amount. But this time, our goal is to actually give them the budget book, which gives you narrative and context. So it'll say, you know, like, this is the police department, this is their goals, this is what they've accomplished, and this is what they're planning. So it provides a lot more useful information. And when I was in Tukwila, that's what we had on October 1st, is we had that book done. So that was our goal, and is our goal this year, is to give council something useful instead of just a list of numbers. So that will help them understand basically what the preliminary budget contains, you know, what the goals are, you know, what the plans are, and they can know that October 1st. In the past, I think they've gotten that budget book late October, maybe in November. So then they're just looking at a list of numbers for like a month, and that's just not optimal. It's not good communication. So that's been been very vocal about that goal, and I'm looking forward to being successful, even though I might lay awake at night sometimes. October 2026, we present the budget to the Citizens Advisory Board, which means I will be back. So you get to listen to me again. Twice in 1 year. I don't know how you can contain yourselves. October 2020, on the 22nd, we have the first public hearing for the biennial budget. There'll be 2 readings, and this state law requires that there's a public hearing. So the first presentation of that budget is on October 22nd. On that same day, we have 2 other public hearings. One of them is for the general property tax levy and revenue. That just means that's the property tax levy. And then the second one is the revised 2026 annual budget. So between now and then, we will have a preliminary budget going to council on the 22nd, the property tax levy going to council on the 22nd, as well as amendments to the 2026 budget for this year. And that's why we do the CIP early, which I learned last year. And then on November 12th, we do it all again on the second reading. So if everything continues to move forward, we're hopeful that November 12th, the process will be complete.
Yeah. Will the preliminary budget book on October 1 be publicly available, or is it just for the council?
It should be. It's primarily for you, but once you guys have it, it's pretty much public.
And we developed a budget website.
Yeah.
It'll be more robust September 1st because the new website goes live September 1st. But it'll all be housed there. And right now, even on the website, there's like the presentations and things like that. So it's all on one page.
This is the first time I've done this presentation with my boss in the room, and I find it helpful.
Well, on that note, our council meeting is actually October 29th, not 22nd. So
Oh,
you
okay.
got another week.
Well, there we go.
Jeff? Will the budget website address be on the materials that we're going to be getting to distribute to our communities?
Yes, it's on there now. So it's on there
Is it?
now.
Okay.
A copy of, I don't think the Spanish one is, so that's a good note for me to make sure that's on there. But what's on there now is the presentation from last week. We'll put this presentation on there. The little summary sheet that went out in the city manager report that Jeff went through, that's on there. And then we'll put the proposed budget on there as well.
What I mean is, in the materials that we can print out to leave in various places and give to people, will it have the budget website on? Oh, it does. Okay, thank you.
Okay, balancing priorities and financial sustainability. So, what we have this budget cycle that we have not had before is a strategic plan that the council has adopted. And really, the budget is just implementing that plan. So if you want to find the strategic plan that council adopted, if you go to the website, and this is, I guess this slide is void at September 1st, but it's right there on the main page, strategic plan up in the upper toolbar. And the focus areas is, did you want to cover that strategic plan? Or you want me? Okay, just making sure. The budget is one of the primary tools for putting the strategic plan in action. So the focus areas are economic vitality, financial stability, public safety, engaged and thriving community, natural and built environment, and organizational excellence. So these are the council identified budget priorities for 27-28, and this has been touched on a little bit earlier when we talked about the town hall. And then Catherine explained the city council meeting on August 6th, where council worked through this to choose which ones were important, most important to them. So the first one is public safety staffing. The second is make Des Moines easier to develop in. Third is set a long-term direction for the marina. And fourth is strengthen fund balance reserves above policy minimum. The policy minimum means we have enough reserves to cover about 2 months of expenses. And we'd actually like to do a little bit better than that, but that's where that is what that priority is referencing. What we have to balance a lot of different things, because a lot of people I think think like, well, that's a government, they must have unlimited resources. Not the case. And so every decision always, if you want one thing, you might have to give up another. So there's always a balancing of priorities, a balancing of different perspectives or issues. So maintaining existing city services, strategic plan priorities. So these are a list of things that are important that always have to be kept in mind when making decisions in the budget. Community needs and expectations, rising costs of providing services, available ongoing revenues, maintaining adequate reserves, capital and infrastructure needs, and long-term financial sustainability. So all of these is really in the mix when we're planning a budget. We can't just say, well, we'd really like, to hire 50 more cops. Well, that would drain our reserves. So obviously, even though the community might really, really love public safety, there's a limit to what we could. So there's always a trade-off. And when we have to think about what those trade-offs might be to do one thing and not another, these are all the factors that really come into play of what we have to think about. But the most important thing, though, for the general fund specifically, is really providing services to the community. So we really want to maintain existing city services, and then to do that without draining our reserves, or do that without doing something the community doesn't want or need. So that's how all of these different factors come into play when we're thinking about where the city spends its money. So here's a graphic that says the budget balancing test. A responsible budget brings three things together. So the first one is community and council priorities. So what do we want to accomplish? That's next to service needs. What does it take to maintain the services residents rely on? Usually that's answer to that is money. And then underneath there is financial capability. What can we sustainably afford? So we might have things we want to do, but we have to be financially responsible with the taxpayers' money. So when we look at up at the community and council priorities, what do we want to accomplish? Well, we have the strategic plan focus areas. So that is the importance of a strategic plan, because you're hearing from the elected officials that the community has put in place, and also the community in this section of like what is important. Because without knowing what is important, then you're making something up every time you do a budget, which might not be consistent, or what the community wants. Community priorities and expectations, and of course, policy direction from City Council. So that's the community and council priorities. That's really what guides any decision making at the beginning of the budget process. Service needs, so you know your priorities. Service needs, what does it take to maintain the services residents rely on? So you have current service levels, staffing and operational costs, infrastructure and capital needs, and compliance and mandates. So really, I think in our economic environment, when we talk about current service levels, that's something that we're trying to accomplish. I think most cities would probably want to grow your service levels, but when you have limited funds, and you know the community is used to a certain number of police officers, a certain number of parks programs, a certain level of customer service when they come in, your goal is like, we need to at least maintain that. But when you have limited funds, that can be a challenge. So that's really where service needs comes in, I think, the most, is really trying to maintain the service level the community is used to. And then you might have to get creative to do that, which leads us down to financial capacity. What can we sustainably afford? So that's where being responsible comes into play. So ongoing revenues and one-time resources, which we focus on quite a bit at the city. Cost trends and economic outlook. So again, we can't say, well, sales tax is going to grow 10% year over year. Like, no, that's not going to happen. And if you get a little too optimistic, you can start to rely on money that's not there, and that's bad. That leads to really bad things. So that's why we look at the economic, what the economy is doing. Reserves and cash balance targets. That's really your long-term sustainability, which is listed underneath. Because we want to cover if something terrible happens. We want to know we have enough cash to cover like 2 months of expenses at a minimum. And in accounting and finance, they call it a going concern. We don't want to be like a business that goes out of business. We want to be here, years from now. So we have to make financial decisions that are wise and responsible, so that the city can be remain a going concern, can remain providing, you know, the services that the community is used to and are consistent with the priorities of the council and the community. So that's kind of how that all fits together, but all has to be balanced when we come up with a work on a balanced budget. So on the bottom there it says our goal is to align priorities and service needs with available resources to deliver the right services in a financially sustainable way. And discussion, what matters most? I think.
Can I make a suggestion is that we go around the table and let everybody say something so everybody gets a chance, and then we can come back if there are some more questions, or if there, you know, but everybody gets a chance first before we come back. Is that okay? And if so, Eileen, would you?
A balanced budget.
Well, go ahead.
Asking, the question before was what matters to everybody, a balanced budget.
These were just...
That's required by law. So we're going to get to a balanced budget. How, you know, what should we, where should the focus be, and what are the trade-offs that you would think? I'd like you to just go ahead and take all three questions. I know
Okay.
I'm dumping this on you right away. So.
Sure, that's okay.
Yeah.
Most important to protect our police, one of the resources. I think we all agree with that. Where should city focus and resources are limited? Maybe using staff time as wisely as possible. Which really doesn't generate any revenue, so I don't know where I was going with that, but most concerned about, I believe, would be if their taxes went up, or a trade-off that they weren't. What you see most is safety. I think that would be the most visual thing that people may have concerns about if they're not seeing that they're feeling that they don't have a amount of police protection.
Bettina?
Well, in general, I think that, I'm not going to answer them in order, actually. One of the things that I think the city really needs to remain focused on is the citizens, the residents, right? And making decisions with the residents in mind. I mean, we had to make some really tough choices around even pet care a few years ago, or 2 years ago, and we had to make decisions about, you know, how, if we have a 4th of July, or if we have a Christmas tree, or these kinds of decisions, which seem kind of simple on the one hand and obvious, but at the other end of that, it's residents need to have the kind of experiences that we put together like yesterday, to feel a part of the community. I think that has to remain the city focus, and I think the feeling of safety is still missing. And even though and it's partly because we don't have enough cops, we don't have what we need. So, you know, I think if we keep our eye on the ball, which is the residents, and we keep checking in with them, doing more surveys. I know that everybody might get surveyed out, but the more we check in with people, I think the more that we are going to find out. And especially, I would say, doing whatever other cities are doing to get to populations that are underserved and underrepresented. I don't know how I do it, but I always have lots of representation, and I wish I could give you the magic bullet and to tell you how to do it, but at the end of the day, I think we need to focus on the citizens. I think there are some trade-offs that I personally would be concerned about, that do have to do with, you know, like, I think having watched more than the most people watch of the meetings, either attending or watching them later, there seems to be a little bit of a tendency to feel like you have to always think about the short term and not the long term. I think it's just as important for us to do the long-term planning, even though, you know, you might have to be concerned about like limiting how you go out and eat and how you do things at your home. It's the same with the city. Yes, you have to ratchet in your budget, but you can't forget that your house, if you don't put money into your house, it'll fall apart, right? So if we don't put the same emphasis on the longer term capacity of the city and where we might have more people coming to live here and spending more dollars here, then I don't think we're just being highly budget conscious isn't going to be enough. You have to do the visionary conversations whilst you still keep your eyes on the prize. You know, one of the things I was mentioning at the meeting, I'm going to just go to my notes here so I don't forget what I mean to say, but I mentioned this to Jeff, that some things, because there's so many buckets, that I wonder about that altogether, honestly. Like, why are there so many buckets? And because of that, there may be some expenses that are kind of in every single one of the buckets that lend itself to possibly like a hole in the bucket. And I'll give you the example. When we looked at, this was before your time, Catherine, we looked at, was it viable for us to continue to have Judson running the senior services at Wesley, running the whole, like maintaining the programs and all of that. And then when we looked at it, because it was a separate expense, we found that, we could do that for a lot less money. So if we looked at, say, for example, consultants and the fees that are paid in potentially 37 buckets, we might have a hole in our buckets. Because what if instead we needed a staff person? And I point specifically to the communications. The need for a communications director still continues to not be an investment that we make. We've got that parceled out to so many people, and there's no way you can get it right if we do not find our path to getting a communications solution in place. We're going to continue to have these problems with reaching people, getting, one thing done or another. So that's kind of like my full, say. Here you go. Oh, yeah.
So I live in an area that we pretty much call the police every night during the summer with all the racing and the criminal activity right in the big parking lot and along Redondo Beach Drive. So the priority in the Redondo area would be the safety or trying to get more police coverage. So that's number one. And trade-offs, skip to number 3. So in order to get that, we may have to pay more taxes somehow. But by paying more taxes, there could be, the trade-offs could be families have less money to spend on even basic things like food, utilities, of course going out and doing fun things. So that would be a trade-off, but I'm beginning to think that that might be an okay trade-off to have better safety.
Victoria?
I'm going to be redundant here. Public safety for number 1 for sure. Where should the city focus if resources are limited? Bettina and I are the squeaky wheels here about a communications professional. That's when I started getting involved. But we have communication professionals in this group here. We're 2 of them. There are others who are great communicators. I think the city should focus even more, really push us volunteers to be out there because you can't have a communications professional, you don't have the money. But you have us, and we're willing. And we can do more. Many of us can do more. Trade-offs, that's the toughest question. I tried to get the people that in my building in Wesley to care more about CTAC and the noise level. Oh, well, I don't hear anything, and, you know, I don't care. They don't, you know, so I don't know what our residents would be the most concerned about. I wish I did. I think they would notice if there were less police presence in the community. That's the only thing I could think of, sorry.
In thinking about these questions, I don't know if I'm going to answer all of them, but overall, I've been here 7 years now, and I feel like this community is, given the resources it has, is actually very well run, especially recently with Catherine's leadership. I think I've really seen a difference in how things operate and how responsive the city is. And I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. And I think that the resources are limited. There's no two ways about it. Your comment about too much tax-exempt property really, to me, is Des Moines' story. And that's the problem that needs to be solved, is there needs to be a way to generate revenue. And we tend to go around in circles in our conversations about we need to spend money here, we need to do this, we need to save money there, when in fact, you only have so much money, and if you don't generate more revenue, you're not going to be able to do anything different than what you're already doing, which is generally a pretty good job given what you have to work with. So I tend to go what the short term informs what the long term needs to be. And that's how I see a strategic plan. And so I think that's your trade-off, you know. Develop more revenue. You'll get to do more things. So.
Yeah.
I'm the new guy. So, no, I appreciate you're right on. I mean, I agree with the revenue piece. We often talk in business like you can't cost cut your way into prosperity. So. But the revenue base, you talked about the property taxes having to do with businesses and housing, I guess. And so I would comment that, you know, maybe that's an area of focus, is how do we, I grew up in Des Moines, went to the high school, moved away, come back 30 years later, and some of these lots are still empty, you know, 30, 40 years later. So it hasn't changed much in that respect. So maybe that's an opportunity, is to look around our community and where can we, you know, put businesses, where can we put homes and construction projects to build that property tax that base back up. And then additionally, I had a comment back to that 7 cents that really struck me because I was thinking about how it is or who is involved in negotiating that 7 cents. And how do we, and who's involved in getting into the 8 cents or 10 cents? I mean, what's the effort involved in that? Maybe it's not at this level, maybe it's at the state level who decides those things, but I think somewhere along the way someone should be advocating for another cent or 3 for us. So that's my 2 cents. My 2 cents, there you go.
Randy?
Thanks, sir. First of all, I need to encourage down there at the Adriana my fellow residents, and there's about 10 couples, believe it or not, in that building, married couples. We must have that fire department there 2 or 3 times a day. There's a lot of people that are dying there. We lost 6 residents this year. Yeah, some young people too. and I say it jokingly, but they could park a medic unit and respond from the Adriana, because honestly, they're there probably 2 or 3 times a day, and we are very grateful. So my job, I see, is to encourage them when a levy comes up, vote, because and convince them that Des Moines doesn't have their own fire department, South King County Fire. When a levy comes up, vote for that. When a police levy comes up, vote for that, because that's what they're telling me. We want more public safety. Okay? That's my job as I see it. And I just want to thank you for bringing that parade personally to me. I had the Buffalo Soldiers, those big, right there on the corner where I sit every day, and you all see me sitting there. The parade, I grew up with Seafair, and I just get chills. The whole parade. And Tanya is now our manager. You know, she worked for the city, and she was the grand marshal. I had no idea. She gets off of a fire engine, you know, and she didn't, I guess, really want to do it, but she was a good sport. But then all of a sudden, everybody walks up the street. I'll make this, I can't tell a quick story, but we saw everybody walking up where they gathered, and then the parade comes down, and here's these magnificent horses, and they're in women in period costume, you know, Blitz from the Seahawks, and right there at my doorstep, and the Pirates, they ignored us, but the clowns came by, and I made darn sure that Woody gave, because they all went over, they pre-ordered their food there at the Mandarin Kitchen. I made sure he gave me a button for Seafair Clowns. That means so much to me. All right. I'm looking for help. And Allison, if I could take maybe just 2 minutes of your time after the meeting, because I don't mind being in charge of the senior, whatever I'm involved in, senior citizens portion. Really miss you, Eileen, being on there. But as I understand it, it's me, Susan White. Did you have an interest, Allison, in being? Look, I'm putting you on the spot, but go ahead.
My interest was refocusing the committee as a community enrichment so that it would be kind of following what the city has done with the Parks Department, with those as an umbrella, so that I can bring more of the family or the parks, that kind of focus to the committee.
All right, I didn't want to speak for you, but so right now, I thought Susan would be here tonight, but I don't know if she still wants to be. I don't mind being in charge. I'm going to try and recruit more people like Gene, you, and Jeff did, the way you snickered me into the whole thing. But I need to get more people involved from where I live. And am I accurate that we can have as many on my particular bailiwick as
I don't think the committee has a limitation, but they need to be members of the CAB.
Right. I think I understand that, so, okay.
We need to kind of get focused back up on the budget.
Okay, I'm just about done, and that is that I don't think that the senior center really is all wanting us meeting there, so I'm offering up the social room where we met on the second floor. We could totally meet there, and anybody, and that's my piece.
Thank you. Rick?
Real quick, he brought it up, it just reminded me, is the Adriana tax exempt? It is. That's what I thought. So, first and foremost, safety and public services. Number one, you have to have the city people want to come to, feel safe to come to. I think we do a pretty good job of that, actually. Been here for 35 years. Raised my kids here, so very familiar with the marina, grew up there. I think we really need to bring, I like the comment was here from the meeting about bringing in businesses, incentivize people to come in and spend money here, obviously, not just take it from the limited property owners that we have, and the current businesses that we have that get tapped for everything. So those are in good priorities. I really feel strongly, and I don't know the legalities of this, so I'm not familiar with this city and the port's relationship, but there definitely needs to be some mitigation fees that we should be receiving from what we put up with for the airplanes coming through. And that, I don't know the history. I know what it's about. I know what the port's about. They keep expanding and gaining more profits, and I'm sure SeaTac has the same issues, but we got to get some legal beagles on that or something, because that's just not fair. So, and you know, we don't even, again, I don't want to get into details, but also, again, I agree with the negotiating, maybe with some of the nonprofits or tax exempt people for services they get for, I'll just say free, you know, and I'm familiar with the fire department, and to address what you said a little bit, the fire benefit charge runs the same way. It's not new levies or anything. It's property taxes and fire benefit charge with South King County, so we all pay that together. But having, we go to places like the Adriana, Wesley, Judson, and we go there a lot. Now, there is a legal thing in the legislation, the RCW, that says if you can track the data saying you're increasing efforts of our services, they can make a charge. It's very hard to do. No one's ever done it, but you can negotiate with different entities if you have the energy and the manpower or staffing to do that. There's a place in the law for that. It's not done because you have to have good data and you have to prove it. So if you're going once a day, like where I worked, you know, once a day to Merrill Gardens, you know, it takes away your aid unit. So many, if you got to do the data, the math, and all that stuff, you prove it, go up there and say, hey, we'd like to negotiate a cost. Not an FBC full charge, maybe 100%, but some kind of charge. They do that with the Highland College. They don't pay either. And so we have a lot of places that don't pay that live here, and I get why they don't. I get the laws, but maybe there should be a little more energy in investigating that. It's hard to do, though. That's what I got.
Arlene?
Rick, I want to ask, were they all of natural causes? Those 6?
This is Rick, I'm Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy. Randy.
Randall Scott Richards, Mr. Randall.
Yeah. At the Adriana, your losses were natural causes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There was no homicides.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good. That's good. Old businesses, the old business core needs development. I think property owners of those businesses should be called to task. And I also agree, well, with what everyone has said, quite honestly, but also, especially Rick's point about port money. I mean, we should be getting some money from the port because they've got the money to give. We just got to find a way to get it. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Probably for the most part, everything's kind of been said. When, you know, Eileen was put on the spot being first. It might be easiest for Allison. I just agree that we need public safety. I think something else citizens would like would be roads, you know, the streets. There's along 7th Avenue, you know, when you're going down there like by where ABC is and stuff, you got to kind of go to the right side of the road because there's so many little holes, and I think that would give the citizens an idea that the city's a little concerned about some of those things. That could be maybe a minor thing. And just to touch on what Rick said, though, where he was saying if the fire department's going to Adriana 3 times a day, or they're at Wesley a lot too, that really wouldn't benefit us, would it? Yeah, I didn't think so. Right, it benefits the fire department, but not us. And I don't know about trade-offs. I suppose we'd have to be there'd have to be a list, or we'd have to say, if we do this, then you won't get this, and that list could probably be very lengthy. So overall, I think it's just, most people would like the public safety thing. That's probably the biggest concern. That's all.
Eddie?
Well, first of all, I think you're doing a much better job of communication. We could do a better job, but it is so much better than it used to be. And so in that case, I want to say thank you. Well, of course, but it's not you, it's the staff. But now there's finally someone here that realizes that who lives here is the most important thing. And public safety is, yes, but it's really the residents. And getting communication open to them. And now you have a beautiful source already of it. It's just that we just need to educate.
Allison?
First of all, I want to commend you, Jeff, for making a presentation on taxes very interesting. So, yeah, thank you. Actually, yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
So, of course, public safety is the most important thing, and I really appreciate the newer members of the public safety that are focused on more mental health and community outreach. We could use more of those, I think. But I'm also gonna, talk about, or what I think is really important is the community enrichment services, making sure that the city feels friendly to families, that those are the priorities. Making sure that we have those events available, that we have the space, that we have the programs for families. I think that's really critical. That's going to, if families are happy living here, and they feel like it's a family-friendly place to live, raise their children, then they're going to be more interested in being in the community, shopping at downtown, eating out. I don't know anything about zoning, and my husband would probably not want me to say this, but I really think that there could be an opportunity to transform the downtown corridor so that there's more live-work space. I don't want it to turn into Ballard, what Ballard turned into. We love that it's more like old Ballard here, right? It has that charm that's a little bit, I wouldn't say quirky, yeah. That's way better than dumpy, but it's just got a character that we don't want to go away. So, but I do think that there could be a compromise, and so some of those giant holes that are an eyesore could be filled with tax-paying people. So, I think that should be a huge priority for the city. Trade-offs. I'm gonna do my husband proud and say that when COVID happened and there had to be a lot of reductions in programming, we were really sad that baseball had to go away. And it's never been brought back. So that's just an example of the kind of trade-offs that had to happen. And so I think programming, removing programming, I think would be something that especially families would object to and feel most concerned about. Okay.
Okay. Then everybody's had a chance. You may have raised some questions, specific questions, or something else that you missed. So does anybody else have something to add to what's already been said? Eddie?
The thing that I know is that Des Moines has a bad reputation in the building department because you're too strict, or you're having things, or they're too old-fashioned or something like that. And I know that that's one thing that I know you guys are concerned about, but it is an ongoing problem.
and it is an ongoing slow fix. But it, that was, you saw that was one of the things. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, Eileen?
So one comment, I have pulled permits for a remodel because of a fire and had excellent service from the permit center. I worked in other jurisdictions. I worked for the City of Des Moines Permit Center. I worked at the City of Kent Permit Center. And I pulled from other jurisdictions for different things. And Des Moines is the easiest that I have ever dealt with. And so when people have concerns about Des Moines, I don't know particularly what their situation has been. But if you haven't done other cities, you don't really have anything to compare it to. And I've not found one thing to complain about the building or planning in Des Moines. But I have a lot of experience with other jurisdictions. So again, other people, depending on their situation, it may be different. And sometimes it happens to be just personality conflicts, whether it's on the resident side or the city employee side. So I just have to say that because I've not had an issue. But the other thing I was going to bring up is for revenue. I mean, this doesn't seem like a big amount or anything, but Public Works has to go out a lot. I'm aware of, and I've called on things being just dumped in trash through the downtown area. And if you don't call, it doesn't get picked up, and then people are like, why isn't it being taken care of? Well, they can't be everywhere and they don't know about it. So I try to call, and it's happening more and more. And I don't know if it's the new businesses downtown, but this morning, just leaving after my coffee, and Victoria can definitely agree with this, there is so much garbage downtown. Yeah, and it's not, like this morning, there was a fifth of, like, it was a clear bottle, it looked like it could have been rum, I don't know, right? And an empty pizza box, and some other fast food stuff, and that was right in front of, and it doesn't mean that was that business's, it was right on the corner of 222nd and Marine View Drive. But a Monday night, a Tuesday night, you know, these are happening all the time down there. And it's increased since a new particular business has come in, and it's gotten crazy. And so my thought is, I don't know if zoning or planning or anything can, if there's ever an ordinance that can be written that's saying that, you know, after you don't clean up in front of your place, whether it's the Dollar Tree, whatever, then we're going to charge you.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there's just one thought
I'll
of
circulate that petition.
right, because, and the thing is, she's cleaning it up so people don't see it. I drive around before she cleans it up, and I am appalled at what I see. It's gotten really out of hand. And, you know, it says, you know, there's a stream, fish swim here, don't throw anything out, and it's just loaded with cigarette butts. And it's all three of the bars that I've seen down there and in an area. One seems to be worse than the other, or it's gotten worse. That's just a thought for revenue. And then the other thing was, if they were to rewrite an ordinance or something saying, I mean, we can't now because they already own the property, but when we say we want to fill the empty storefronts, I don't know, other than, you know, like changing restriction of height that they did a few years back, and then people, you know, built the theater and Adriana because they could go up higher, you know, they changed that zoning to entice them. It's a privately owned business, and they don't have to fill it if they don't want to, and we can't say, why don't we have a grocery store? Well, if that person owns that structure, they can put anything they want under, you know, the laws to put there. So we really don't have any say over that. If in the future something was written that says, if you leave it empty for over a year or so, we start to charge what we would lose in taxes, maybe just a little bit or something, to rewrite it so that that could change in the future. That's my only thoughts on those things.
Victoria?
On that note of getting creative, my thought is on the empty lots. I complain when when the weeds get taller than me, and code enforcement, bless their hearts, does something and those things are mowed. Bette Midler in New York took over an empty lot, and she built a community garden, a community space. I'm wondering if we could negotiate with these absent landlords, owners of any of these empty lots. Would you allow the city to put a community garden, pea patches there, or a path, or an art installation, or something there, and in return we will excuse you for this, that, and the other thing? Just that would create a nicer, welcoming look. I mean, back when Tracy was mayor, I asked if the Arts Commission could award money to a group to build a fence and create a mural, so we at least don't have to look at those empty lots. I still think there must be something we can do if they're not going to sell, to let the city use that empty space to beautify downtown.
I really needed to do something that's generating tax dollars. What you're describing
Would-
takes it off the tax roll.
But if people pay for a pea patch, it's not the same thing. Never mind. Sorry to take the time.
That would be really nice.
Yeah, it's a great concept too, but it doesn't do the revenue piece. What we need is those empty lots, those empty buildings to actually create some revenue.
Do they really? The empty lots really?
We need them to. They're not creating any revenue now. Well, there's I guess, some property tax.
They do.
Bettina?
You jack their petty taxes up?
1%.
To me, I'm sorry, Bettina, go ahead.
I frequent a lot of the businesses in the local area, and there's a lot of businesses that are really struggling. So what I think is that the city and the council could take up the question, what can our community do to create an environment where local businesses have a better chance of being successful? And we have a new chamber, that's great, that's going to make a huge impact, but we need to have an ongoing conversation about how the city is going to help these businesses to have more success. And the state of Washington happens to have a toolbox full of opportunities, whether they're grants, whether they're special designations. There's so many opportunities. But communicating those opportunities to businesses who haven't the wherewithal, the time, the understanding, like the education to understand how to even complete an application, that's what's missing. There is money out there for these businesses to do the facelift, to do the cleaning up and things like that. We as a city should be helping them to do that. It is a possibility. It would take some resources of somebody's time to put together what the state of Washington's toolbox is, because they have a lot of different programs. I've investigated it, I've written about it recently, and I'm going to continue to harp on that. That is really where the city should spend some of its time and money, because these businesses are hurting and they're struggling. And I don't even know how half of them are hanging on. I really just don't. Thank you.
Given everything that Bettina just said, is there, it seems like that it's sort of a majority view that we need economic development. Certainly your view. Is there something this board can actively be involved in doing that?
I would say help spread the word on what we are doing. We actually are researching a vacant lot program. We're going to be bringing that to council this fall. Next Thursday, council and planning commission are having a joint session about increasing zoning downtown, which will be a really important community dialogue. There have been business roundtables going on this summer. We'll be sharing the results of those at the September 24th meeting. So there's a lot of, we got a second code enforcement person, which took a lot of flipping over couch cushions to find some loose change for that position. So a lot of these things we are working on, and I think sometimes we really need your help in telling people we are working on these things. Are we turning things around overnight? No, but we are making progress, and sometimes I feel like it's, because it's hard for people to remember what the city's doing. You all have lives, you're doing other things. But there's like the continual message that like we're not doing anything, and that's not true. And so I think we give one of the benefits of CAB is you all get countless presentations from staff about things that are going on, and you get a lot of really personal invitations to come to city events, and many of you I've met with individually. So we need your help sharing the progress we are making. We are not at the finish line, but we are not at the starting line either. And I need your help communicating that.
And I'm not communicating well enough. I absolutely think that you and the city are doing phenomenally. I don't know where you might have gotten the feeling that I was not thinking that the city isn't doing great, because they are. I'm just saying there are 50 other programs that the state of Washington has. Well, she was looking at me when she was saying that, and I was like, no, I don't want to be confused with anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add too that, well, we're part of the Yacht Club, and so we take the boats and we go all over the place, and we're always going someplace else besides Des Moines. We're going to Gig Harbor, we're going to Port Orchard, we're going to Bremerton, all these great places, because they have really awesome marinas, and they have great little towns you go in, spend all kinds of money, eat out, and so, you know, maybe that's the vision for Des Moines. I don't know, but I mean. You can, if you go visit those towns, and even if you drive there, I mean, they're built around the waterfront. They're built for that. They're a tourist. They're a destination. People go there just because it's a place to go shopping, go out to eat, go to a concert, whatever, and take your boat or your drive there, whatever it is. But you know, I could think that Des Moines could be like that someday, where people are thinking, hey, let's go to Des Moines with our boat or with our car, because it's the place to be. It's a uptown sort of it's got a lot going on, and we just want to go down for the weekend. And I'm not sure we're thinking that way now, but maybe we could.
Well, that's one of the 2027 goals in the budget.
Yeah.
Long-term vision for the marina.
There
So
you go.
perfect.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have another?
You've been waiting.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No comment.
It's almost 8 o'clock. This is the last one.
Okay, so you took the words right out of my mouth. This is what I've been wondering ever since I moved here, why the marina is not a destination, why Des Moines is not a destination. The other thing that I wanted to respond to your comments is there a timeline that has been developed for the strategic plan goals and objectives? If there is, could we get that so we could help communicate that?
Yeah. So the plan is a 5-year plan, which, you know, it's on the title of the document. And then at the September 10th workshop with the council, you can tell I live by council meetings. At the September 10th workshop, the council will be talking about implementation. So staff have developed a laundry list of action items, and we'll be working with them to identify really what's number one on the list and how we're going to report our progress, because I know that's really important.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Can I ask a question about that?
I move to adjourn.
I have a very quick question.
Sorry.
I thought so is there a retreat still on the
Yeah, so September 10th, it's not really a full, it's just going to be actually an implementation workshop.
Oh, okay.
Calling a retreat here in this room, 6 to 9. September 12th is a Saturday morning, that's the budget workshop. Next, September 3rd is the study session where we're talking about downtown zoning. And we have a council meeting tomorrow night, too.
So there's nothing September 11th? I think that
got canceled.
Oh, okay.
I just want to thank you all for your comments. You know, the council, we're having to hash through this thing, and, you know, your feedback on priorities and stuff is very important to us as we make the decisions. And I do appreciate, Eileen, your comments. One of the things that happens is that there's a little bit of inertia going on here. We do have a reputation for some things, and you know, we need to turn that message around. And so, if you do see something that's working, you know, I invite you to say something, because you know, it just otherwise the negative attitude is perpetuated. And so, but anyway, I do thank you all for your suggestions, and we'll take them to heart, you know, when we try to finalize the budget. We'll do it. We have to do it, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a motion, I believe, Victoria?
I move to adjourn. Bettina seconds. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you all very much.